At the beginning of the 4th century, the Roman Empire is in crisis. A civil war is in full swing in the country. Roman legions are fighting against Roman legions. The main rivals are the two Augusti, Constantine and Licinius. After the defeat of Licinius, the emperor appreciated the advantageous location of the city of Byzantium. It was located at the crossroads of east and west through which trade routes passed. Constantine decided to move the capital from Rome to this city, which was renamed Constantinople. In less than 100 years, Emperor Theodosius will divide the empire in two. The eastern part with the capital in Constantinople will go to his elder son Arcadius, and the western part with the capital in Rome to 10-year-old Honorius. 80 years later, Rome will fall under the blows of the barbarians, and the Eastern Roman Empire will remain the only bastion of civilization. Despite losing half of the empire, the country manages to meet almost all its needs for basic products, and some of them are exported in significant quantities to other countries. Grain, oil, fish, fabrics, metal, and metal products. The only things the country imported were art objects and precious Eastern raw materials, spices, fragrances, and silk. Wherever conditions allowed, wheat and barley were grown. In the drier areas there were vineyards and olive groves. In the south, date palm cultivation was widespread. Papyrus was grown in the Nile Delta. Green meadows, but mainly shrub-covered and forested mountain slopes, were dedicated to livestock farming. The forest of Dalmatia served as a source of construction and shipbuilding timber. Throughout the empire, numerous quarries were opened for clay to make pottery, sand for glass, and marble for constructing villas, majestic buildings, and paving streets. The Balkan provinces were a source of iron, copper, and zinc, and when it came to gold and silver, Byzantium had no equal among its neighbors. The main cities of the empire, besides Constantinople, were Alexandria, Athens, and Antioch, centers of intellectual and cultural life. Byzantium was inhabited by many tribes and peoples, but they all called their country the Roman Empire and themselves Romans, that is, Romans. The supreme power in the country was held by the Emperor Basileus. North Africa and Italy were separate administrative units called exarchates. They were governed by imperial heirs, exarchs, who had full authority in the region. The entire bureaucratic apparatus was divided into departments, which we now call ministries. People were generally appointed to leadership positions for their business qualities and military valor. Mandatory criteria for an official included adherence to orthodoxy, neither nationality nor lineage mattered. Since the times of the Old Empire, the emperor was considered merely the highest official in the service of the state. Therefore, to remain on the throne, he had to maneuver between different political forces. The emperor's power was not hereditary and largely depended on the synclite, the Senate, consisting of representatives of the high nobility. Additionally, the emperor depended on the sympathy of the common people, whose opinion was influenced by the church. Therefore, the emperor supported the church and the church supported the emperor. In the 5th century, barbarian raids became more frequent. The response to this challenge was the construction of the main defensive structures of the capital, the Theodosian walls, which protected the city from land and sea. Together with the old walls built by Constantine, they formed a powerful defensive belt of walls stretching 16 kilometers, reinforced by 400 towers, reliably protecting Constantinople for many centuries. Safe and prosperous times led to the flourishing of education and culture. For example, a philosophical school was opened, a university. The name of this school became a common noun, and later throughout Europe, higher educational institutions were called by this name. Byzantium was never as powerful as it was under Justinian I. He believed that the emperor was God's representative on earth and emulated King Solomon in every way, a ruler endowed with divine wisdom. This is especially evident in his effort to create just legislation. Justinian's code of laws had a tremendous impact on the development of the legal system. Even today, legal theory and practice rely on the works of the Justinian era. Like Solomon's temple in Jerusalem, the emperor began the construction of the Hagia Sophia and simultaneously tried to restore the borders of the Roman Empire from Galilee to Judea. By appointing people who were not of noble birth but talented to high positions, he managed to conquer North Africa, the south of Spain, all of Italy, and free himself from Chinese dependence. For many centuries, China imported silk into the empire and exported gold. It reached the point where Byzantium had to introduce special laws limiting the use of silk fabrics. Justinian decided it was time to produce silk themselves, but the Chinese did not allow anyone to export silkworms, protecting their monopoly. According to legends, Byzantine monks went to China and simply stole silkworm larvae, hiding them in their stuff politicians, their stuff. Deci as soon as silkworms appeared in the territory of Byzantium, silk trade became exclusively a state enterprise. Large government expenditures, attacks by barbarians, war with the Persians, plague, and uprisings undermined the country's stability. In the north of the empire, the Avars and Slavs invade. The greatest problem is the Slavs. Unlike the Avars, who raid and leave, they stay and settle throughout the Balkan Peninsula. In the south, exhausting wars with Sasanian Iran drained the imperial treasury, and then the Arabs, whom no one took seriously, found a new faith and began rapid expansion. By the end of the 7th century, they had swallowed both the Sasanians and part of Byzantium, the richest and most important provinces, Syria, Palestine, Egypt, and North Africa. Having lost the fertile lands that supplied Byzantium with grain, the cities fell into decline. They turned either into villages or medieval fortresses. The only major urban center left was Constantinople. The country lives in constant fear of the Arabs. There is a sense of the end of the world in the air. The country is in cultural decline with nothing to write on. Old scrolls are deteriorating and Egyptian papyrus is unavailable. One manifestation of cultural decline is the rapid growth of icon veneration. The most zealous, to rid themselves of ailments, scraped and ate the plaster from icons of saints. This caused rejection among some clerics, which led to iconoclasm. As a result, many icons were destroyed. Only a small part of them has survived to this day. The Arabs twice attempted to besiege Constantinople, but thanks to the so-called Greek fire, the siege was repelled. Emperor Leo III and Sever seemingly restored order in the state and even defeated the Arabs. But Byzantium could no longer claim hegemony in Europe. Only under the Macedonian dynasty did the empire regain Syria, part of Mesopotamia, and Crete, defeat the Bulgarian kingdom, and take control of the Balkans. Constantinople is flourishing again and impresses contemporaries with its grandeur. The emperor's court is famous for its luxury and meticulously developed ceremony. The Basileus is almost like a god, served only by eunuchs. In the capital, new schools are being built, architecture and painting, literature and icon painting are flourishing. The emperor is eager to attract merchants from Pisa, Venice and Genoa, as only they could procure goods for every taste and budget. During this time, Byzantium is actively engaged in missionary work. For example, the well-known Cyril and Methodius create the Slavic alphabet and the Church Slavonic language. In the year 1024, the Christian world was shaken by a scandal. The Orthodox Patriarch and the Catholic Legate excommunicated each other from the Church. This led to the final division of the churches into Catholic and Orthodox. Despite this, Constantinople still served as a staging point for the crossing of Crusader knights to the Asian continent, and the Latins, Venetians, and Genoese continued to trade under the silent disdain of the native Romans. As a result of the coup, Andronikos Komnenos came to power. To gain the support of the people, he organized a massacre of Latins in the capital. About 60,000 Venetians and Genoese were killed. The survivors were sold into slavery. Humiliated Venice and Genoa harbored resentment. When the Crusaders turned to Venice with a request to organize their crossing of the Mediterranean Sea, it raised the price. The knights could not pay the full amount, and the Venetians offered a deal. They would forgive part of the debt if the Crusaders besieged Zadar, Venice's pesky competitor, along the way. After dealing with Zadar, the Venetians, instead of heading to the Holy Land, turned their ships towards Constantinople. The once impregnable city was captured and looted. Hundreds of tons of gold alone were taken away. All the columns, statues and marble for St. Mark's Basilica in Venice were stolen. Even these horses are from Constantinople. Byzantium would not recover from such a blow. From the east, Muslims took Acre, Beirut, Sidon, Jaffa, Haifa, Tyre, and Ascalon, and eventually Jerusalem. From the end of the 13th century, it was the Ottoman Turks who claimed the Roman territories in Asia Minor. All of Syria and Palestine passed to the Muslims. The Turks, like erupting lava, slowly and leisurely consumed Byzantium city by city, surrounding Constantinople from all sides. The entire 14th century, the empire steadily moved towards ruin. Even the appearance of Constantinople spoke of this. The imperial palaces were destroyed, the noble houses resembled ruins, the streets and squares were in neglect. The emperor had nothing to feed the army. On the brink of extinction, the Romans requested help from the Western Christian world. For the sake of assistance, Byzantium was even ready to acknowledge the supremacy of Catholicism. Venice responded by saying it was ready to help if the Pope declared a crusade. Geno turned out to be more generous and agreed to provide one ship. one ship, and only when the Turks were already at the walls of Constantinople, the Venetians sent 2 transport ships with 500 soldiers on board. The Roman Pope also participated in the most modest affairs. He gathered a small army of Hungarians, Poles, and Romanians under the leadership of the Hungarian King Vladislav. It was defeated. The Pope took no further action. Before the siege of Constantinople, the Ottomans built 2 fortresses that cut the city off from grain supplies from the Black Sea. The new fortress Rumeli Hisari, built in a record time of 4.5 months for that period, was nicknamed Throat Cutter. O soluție majoră Otona Bisatrediri. Passing through the Bosporus at its narrowest point without Turkish permission became impossible, and the Dardanelles Strait had long been under Ottoman control. The last year for Byzantium was 1453. During the preparations for the siege, the engineer and inventor Urban offered the emperor his invention, a cannon capable of utterly destroying the Ottoman army. But the treasury was empty, and the wealthy of Constantinople did not provide money. Then Urban offered his services to Mehmed. The Sultan seized this opportunity, which allowed him to destroy the impregnable walls of Theodosius. In early April, right after the Easter celebrations, the Ottoman troops, numbering 60,000 plus 20,000 irregulars, set up camp under the walls of Constantinople. About 130 ships were positioned at sea. The Sultan also brought cannons that had been prepared in advance by the Hungarian engineer Hobont. One of them was the Basilica, a bronze monster that reached, by various estimates, from 8 to 12 meters in length, weighed 32 tons, and could hurl half-ton projectiles up to 2 kilometers. The defenders of Constantinople, who numbered 7,000, were doomed. After 2 months of siege, the city fell. Despite the fact that Byzantium disappeared, the city itself began to flourish. The myth of the wild Muslims was shattered to dust. The main Christian temples of the city were either preserved or converted into mosques. The most famous example is the Hagia Sophia, which was converted into a mosque without altering its architectural appearance. The Ottomans restored the city walls, markets, roads, and infrastructure, invited Christians, Muslims, and Jews to develop trade, built the magnificent Topkapi Palace, and made Constantinople the capital of their empire. In essence, Byzantium continued its life only under new management, with a new religion and a new name. The offended Christian world did not want to acknowledge this. Nevertheless, after the capture of the city, all sultans bore the title Caesar and considered themselves heirs of the Byzantine Empire. But that's a completely different story. The story of the Ottoman Empire, about which I have already made or am currently making this video. In the meantime, I suggest you watch one of these videos.